I am so excited. Over the last month or so, I have had a large influx of new subscribers, and I wanted to welcome you personally. And in this video, I wanted to share a little bit about my story, because if you're new here, maybe you're not sure of how I moved to France, why I moved to France, the type of visa I am on. And these are all questions that I have been getting a lot lately, and I wanted to address those. And so if you're new and you found out about me from International Living Magazine, their YouTube channel, I think that you're going to really enjoy this video. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Patricia Brooks, and I moved to France in 2018. And 2.5 years later, I decided to start a business that helps single women who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives move abroad by finding the confidence and courage to do that, because that is my story. And today I'm going to share with you why I decided I wanted to move abroad, why I chose France, the type of visa that I'm on, and some other things about the area that I'm in that you might be interested in because you're considering a move to France or to this area. And I hope that you find this enjoyable. All right. So first off, I want to start off with why I decided to move to France. I decided to move to France because I got this urge to speak French fluently. I fell in love with the French language in 2014 during a trip to Quebec City, Canada. And I got the inkling that maybe I could speak French fluently. And so because Canadian winters really wouldn't suit me, I decided to visit France for the first time in 2015. And I could see myself living here. And so that is the reason that I moved to France. I wanted to speak French like the French do. Now, I consider myself fluent in French, but I don't think I sound anywhere near as polished or beautiful when I am speaking the French language. But I have actually achieved one of my goals. Another reason I thought I wanted to live in France was because I thought, it would be a good topic for a second book. And so that's what I did in my first 1.5 years here. I wrote that second book called Live a Bold Life. So those were the two main reasons I decided I wanted to move to France. It wasn't until I got here that I recognized that there was this undercurrent of tension that I was experiencing in the United States as a Black woman, and that I didn't feel that living in France. And so that was something that I didn't realize was at play as well. But the primary motivations initially were the language and writing that second book. Okay, so that is out there now. So you might be wondering, what kind of visa am I on? Well, I have been on 2 different visas. The first visa I was on is called the visitor visa, and that is what many people who are retired will move on. I had quit my job as a project manager, and I decided I needed to figure out what my next professional move was. And so that meant I wasn't going to be working, and as long as I had enough in my savings account to support me for each year that I applied for the visa, then I would be okay. And so that is what I did. And I applied for this visa on my own. I did not get help, so it is quite possible to do on your own if you are so inclined. I initially in 2017, the end of 2017, I actually went to the French embassy in Washington, D.C. That was way back when they were actually doing it themselves. Now they have hired a service called VFS, Visa Facilitation Services, to handle paperwork. But that was my first experience. And as a part of that, I had to sign a paper that said I would not do any professional activities. And this is a question that I've been asked too. Well, can you work on a visitor visa or not? And there is conflicting information, different schools of thought, different interpretations. And I think that just depends on who the person is. And my interpretation is a visitor visa. It's not set up for you to work. However, there are some attorneys and a couple of attorneys I've heard who have said, oh, no, you can actually work on a visitor visa. You can do freelance work as long as you're not, working a job in France. And they have some sort of inside track that I don't have. And so the thing that I would say there is, if you are planning to start a business in France or do freelance work in France, you have to be comfortable with the visa type that you choose, regardless of what somebody is telling you, right? You have to be sure or confident of what the person who is advising you is telling you, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be in a foreign country on a visa that proclaims one thing or another. And that is really the thing that you have to take into account. And if you are going to start a business in France, or if you're going to do freelance work, it might just make sense to get a different kind of visa. Okay. So the first visa came on was a visitor visa. It was good for 1 year. I had to renew every year in order to stay in France. I had to prove each year that I could support myself on my savings or some other form of income that was, not working income. Okay. So that's what I did. And that was fine. The downside to that was each year I had to pull these papers together. I had to go for a visa appointment, very stressful, and not the thing I wanted to do every year. So 2.5 years into my stay here, I figured out what I wanted to do professionally. I had made this amazing move to France all by myself, and it felt incredible. And it was not something that I thought I would be able to do all on my own, and I had. And I was there for 2.5 years, and I thought I would love to help other women like me, single women who doubted their ability, single women who might be a little bit older. I moved to France when I was 51, who might think, oh, that's for people who are 20 or 30 to do, and who might, as I said, doubt their ability to do it. I want to help them move through their fears and their limiting beliefs so that they can experience what I'm experiencing. And so I decided, because I'd already been trained to be a life coach, I went through IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and I thought, well, I can dust off that certificate and I can help people just like me. And so that's what I did. And I wanted to start a business here in France. So to do that, I had to apply for a profession libérale visa, which would allow me to start a business here in France. Now, to do that, I had to meet some requirements. I had to write a business plan and write my projections for 3 years. I had to show that I don't know that this was a requirement, but I think this helped. I had to show that I had some runway, some way of supporting myself until my business got going. And so that was something that I did with my bank statements as well. So in order to do this visa, I consulted a book called Foolproof French Visas by Alison Lunes. Now, in this book, she talks about all the different kinds of visas you can get in France and what the requirements are. And so I just walked through it step by step, and I applied for the visa on my own. Once again, I went back to the US to apply for this because my prefecture said that I had to, because it was a change of visa type. And so I did that, and it was a pretty quick process. I went to the VFS office after making my appointment. They took in the paperwork. They checked off to make sure I had all of the documentation, because there are different kinds of businesses you can stand up that required different documentation. There was some documentation that they thought I needed, but that I was pretty sure I didn't. I had to complete a form or sign a form saying that I wanted VFS to submit my application without that documentation, and it was fine. In less than a week, I got my passport back with the visa in it. And so once again, I did it on my own. And I am a project manager. My last job was a project manager at a health insurance company. And I saw applying for a visa as a project. And I did what was required. I found out what the requirements were. I gathered the documentation. I made my appointment. I went into that appointment and I followed through and got the visa. But if that is not something that you are comfortable doing, there are services, hand-holding services, that will help you walk through the process. At the end of the day, you're going to be the one providing them with the documentation. At the end of the day, you're going to be the one showing up at your visa appointment. They can't do that for you. So, having said that, I applied for the visa, the Profession Liberale visa. I received the visa, and then I was able to start a business in France. Now, I do want to say that I did get help with my business plan. I wrote my business plan, but I did reach out to Valerie Aston, who has a company called Start a Business in France, and I actually interviewed her in a live stream back in January, and I'll put a link to that up here above the video, so you can check that out if you're interested in that. And I shared my business plan with her to make sure it, seemed like it was solid enough for what I was going for. And she reviewed it. She gave me some pointers. I made those changes and I applied and I was approved for the visa. Now, where the visitor visa is good for 1 year and you can renew it year after year after year, the Profession Liberale visa starts out good for 1 year. And after that year is up, if you have met the requirements, one of which is meeting the French minimum wage with your business income, which I think at the time when I renewed was about 20,000 euros, then you can be renewed for either 2 or 4 years. All right. So when I went into that appointment, having done what I needed to do that first year, I wasn't sure if I was going to get 2 years or 4 years. And I was nervous. I thought, well, maybe they might not even give me that 2 years. Maybe they'll just give me 1 year. But I was pleasantly surprised when they slid the paperwork through the little slot at the window. I saw that I was going to be signing for a visa that was pluriannuel, meaning it was a multi-year visa. Now, I didn't see at the time whether it was 2 years or 4 years, but I was just over the moon that it was multi-year. And so then when they gave me my card, it's a carte de séjour when you renew, and it was valid for 4 years, I was over the moon. I was so ecstatic. It was such a good feeling. And so that is the visa process that I went through. For me, it was something that I did on my own. As I said, there are services that can help you with the paperwork if you need it. And if that's the case, go ahead and feel free to do that. However, that is not something that I do. I work with people who are ready to move abroad, but haven't been able to make progress. And they are aching to live in their dream country, but their mindset isn't where it needs to be, or they don't believe that it's possible. Maybe they feel too old, whatever that is. That is what I help people with. All right. So I want to move on to the next topic. Now, I already mentioned the reasons that I wanted to move to France. The International Living magazine video led with my rent, and I'm quite happy that my rent is so affordable here. But that was not my primary reason, as I've already mentioned. And neither was the political climate here. When I moved here, I was pretty clueless about what the politics were here. However, this has been a question that has come up. People have asked me whether or not I'm concerned about how French politics are going. And I just wanted to address this very briefly because this is a topic that will get lots of comments, I'm sure, and I don't feel like entertaining them, but I will address this very briefly. In 2017, during the presidential election, Macron went against Le Pen. And during that election, and I'm going to get the numbers right, he won over Le Pen. And the popular vote was 66% for Macron and 34% for Le Pen. All right. So then you fast forward 5 years to the election, the presidential election in 2022, where Macron won again by 58% of the popular vote, and Le Pen earned 42% of the vote. So there was an increase in how many people voted for Le Pen in 2022. So that shows that there is an increase in votes for somebody who is on the far right. So that, I'm just sharing that with you because people have asked me about that. The other thing I want to say is that recently, I believe in January of 2024, there have been some changes to the immigration rules. And one of them is to the French language requirement. Now, if you're coming on a multi-year visa, before there was not a requirement that you met a certain level of French. You might have had to go to French language classes, but you didn't have to pass a test at a certain level. As of January 2024, that has changed. The requirement is, I believe, you need to be at an A2 level in French if you are going for a multi-year visa. If you are going for a 10-year visa, that requirement has changed from an A2 level to a B1 level. And for citizenship, that requirement has increased from a B1 level to a B2 level. And so these changes in immigration laws tend to be because of political leanings. And so I believe that this might be the case with this as well. So that's what I want to say about the political climate here. I think that this is something that is not unique to France, but I did want to address it since it was a question that several people have asked me. I'm not going to engage in any comments in the chat about politics. So if you put it there, I'll remove it or I just will ignore it. Okay. Just want to give you that heads up. All right. So moving on to the fact that moving to Perpignan initially and to Sray in my second year was a very personal choice. And people have seen how beautiful it is here in Sray and in Perpignan based on that International Living magazine. And I think it's so exciting that so many people are now more aware of this area. But know that where you find home in a new country is a personal choice. For me, I chose Perpignan because when I was there, I had this overwhelming feeling of freedom, right? It just felt plain good to me. Then a year later, I couldn't find the neighborhood in that city. And so I ventured out to Sray. And the plane trees, the energy here, the mountains were just so incredible for me. This is my home now, right? But this, again, is a personal choice. So in looking at any video, my video, or anybody else who is showing you an area of a country that you are interested in looking at or living in, I think it's really important to do your homework, which includes visiting and seeing for yourself how that place feels to you. Because I will tell you, there are people who say, oh, there's this city in France that you should move to because of X, Y, or Z. And I visited those cities and I was like, I don't see what these people are talking about. I don't want to live here. So just because I find Sray and Perpignan, this region, a place that feels like home, you need to figure out what that place is for you beyond looking at videos and beyond even asking people, because I can tell you, quite frankly, oh, yes, this is a great place to live. You get here and be sorely disappointed. So there's nothing better than experiencing a place for yourself. Now, with that said, I want to share some things about this region that I have gotten questions on as well that might help you decide whether or not you even want to come for a visit. All right. So weather. People hear the south of France and they think warm weather, warm winters. We have mild winters, but that's not to say that we don't get temperatures in the 30s during the winter. This past winter has been very, very mild. But in winters past, we have gotten cold temperatures. I think this winter we had maybe a week or maybe 10 days of really cold temperatures. Do we get snow? This is funny. I was talking to my aunt a few years ago and she asked me this. I was talking to her in winter and she's like, "Oh, do you get snow there?" And I said, "Oh, no, we never get snow." And then I went to bed that night. The next morning I woke up and the grassy areas was covered in snow. We got a dusting of snow and I had to laugh and I had to tell her the following day, "Oh, you know what? Well, we did get a dusting of snow, but we don't typically get much accumulation." I think many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, there was a heavier snowfall, but that is pretty rare. But we do get colder temperatures. And I do want to caution that the houses here, the apartments here are made to keep it cool inside. So there are tile floors. We do have heaters. I know there are parts of northern Spain, just across the border, who don't have heaters, but we do. It's not central heating. Some places do have air conditioning too. Not central heating, not central air. So what that means is it can be challenging to adjust the climate inside the house, adjust the temperature, regulate the temperature inside the house. Additionally, because it's not central heating and air, in the wintertime, I will have to sometimes open my windows because condensation has accumulated on the inside and I need to dry my house out. I also have a dehumidifier to help with that. So my house in the wintertime, even though it might be milder outside, is not comfy, cozy, warm. So I just want to share that with you. In terms of other weather that I did not account for in this region was the wind. Now, I'd never lived in Chicago or a very windy place. And so I was taken aback my first winter here when the wind was howling and it was very, very strong. That was something that surprised me. So this is a windy area. It's called the Tramontana. All right. And you can look that up and see what that is all about. And then finally, on this front of where I am and whether it's right for you, come and see for yourself. But a question about transportation comes up. Oh, people want to move to Europe because they believe that they don't need to have a car. And that question came up for me about this region. When I was in Perpignan, I did not have a car and I did not feel like I needed a car. It wasn't, something that I was against. I just was close to the train station. There were lots of buses going lots of different places. It was a central hub. And so I didn't get a car. But when I moved to Serres, a smaller village, there is bus service here. And the bus service is pretty good. It's just not convenient. And if I want to do something in the evening in town, in Perpignan, I won't be able to do it and get back home using the bus. Sometimes the bus runs late. Sometimes it runs a lot late. One time I was going to help a friend at a neighboring village with their garden, and it was summertime, and I waited 20 minutes and the bus didn't come. And I started walking away from the bus stop thinking it wasn't going to come. The other people, French people, were just sitting and waiting because they knew that sometimes the bus is over 20 minutes late. But as soon as I started to walk away, that bus came and I had to hightail it back to the bus stop so that I could get on that bus. But that was something that I think some French people expected. So that's another thing you have to consider with the public transportation system. I can get to the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, by car in 40 minutes. By bus, it will take me an hour and 35 minutes to get there. So not convenient, not easy if you're used to getting in a car and going somewhere. So in my second year, I did choose to buy a car after 6 months because it was just going to be more easy and more convenient for me. And so can you live where I live without a car? I think you probably could. Would you be happy doing it? I don't know. That's a personal decision. That's a personal choice. You might want to be in the city because that might be more convenient for you. Okay? So that's about where I live and the personal choice of that. Go and see for yourself the region, the city, the town that you're considering, if at all possible, because then you can get a sense for yourself. And I think that's the best way. And finally, I want to share with you about driver's licenses, right? If you are a U.S. citizen and have a U.S. driver's license, then you may or may not be able to do a driver's license exchange with France. There are 17 or 18 states that allow this, and Virginia, fortunately, was one of them, and I did that. Now, you need to do this in your first year here. So even if you are living in a city and you don't intend to drive, you might want to do the exchange so that you don't have to take the driver's test here, because I understand it is challenging and it is in French. So I recommend that if you are from one of these 17 or 18 states, and I'll put a link to an article that will tell you what those states are, to go ahead and exchange your driver's license so that on the off chance you want to drive in France, that you can, and you can do it legally. All right, so I think that's all I wanted to share here. This is a little bit longer of a video, but I wanted to give you some detail and answer some of the questions that have been coming through to me. Now, I will also be putting some resources in the description of this video, resources about foolproof French visas, resources about start a business in France, Valerie's service, and other resources that will help you. Now, if you still feel like you want to talk to me, get my firsthand account and answering your questions about moving to France, get some more information about moving to France, I am happy to entertain those. I offer a paid session where you can ask me questions that are maybe more logistical, and I will answer them based on my experience to the best of my ability. So this is not my lane, but oftentimes people feel like they want to talk to somebody who has done it themselves, and they want to ask questions directly to me. So if I did not answer your question, and this is something that you're interested in, you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/info session, and you submit payment, and then we can have our conversation, and I will do my best to answer your questions. All right. If, however, you are a single woman or a woman who is looking to move abroad but is struggling to move forward and make progress because you feel stuck, you know the things that you need to do, or maybe there's some uncertainty there because you have limiting beliefs, then we can also have a conversation, but this is a complimentary session. So if you are just unsure about how you are going to make it happen, if you are feeling doubt or feel like you need to build your confidence, or if you're doing it alone and you want to be a part of a group of like-minded women, then you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/future expat and sign up for your complimentary discovery session. Okay? So those are the things that I have to offer. I did want to share that there is also another resource that if you are an information seeker that you might find helpful, and that is Christopher Wells. He has a meetup group called Future Expat that meets once a month. And he does research, and he will bring a lot of information to each of those sessions. And you can sign up for those. I think there's a nominal fee of maybe $5 that you pay just to defray his costs. But again, he's an educator. He is a researcher. So he brings a lot of information to each of those sessions. And so that might be something you might find worthwhile as well. All right. And I also did a video with him, a live stream video with him, and you can check that out up here. All right. I hope that this video has been insightful, that you learned a lot, that you got your questions answered. If not, and you feel like my experience and talking to me personally will be helpful, you can sign up for one of those information sessions. If you are stuck and you need to help with building self-confidence so that you can make a move abroad, you can schedule your discovery session, which is complimentary. And I look forward to talking with you soon. So that is all I have for you today. Be sure to check out these videos here that can give you more insight into my experience here in France. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed it, and share it with a friend. Take care. Bye for now.